je me lève dans cette chambre pour la dernière.
As I rise in this house for the last time, I start by recognizing that we are meeting on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin people. Mr. Speaker, I hope that soon there will be territorial recognition included in the opening of this house every day.
Some of you, especially my karaoke friends, might have thought that I would start by singing my best karaoke version of Wind Beneath My Wings, and then dedicate it to all the staff, volunteers, and colleagues. Or maybe I'd just reiterate my advice to women in politics. No high heels, never check a bag. I hope you're not disappointed. I've now represented the engaged citizens of Toronto St. Paul's for more than 26 years. Longer than I practiced medicine. And next year will be my 50th anniversary of graduating from Med's 74 U of T. When I got to my 18th year in Parliament, I joked that the over 2,000 babies I had delivered could now all vote. I promise you that was never the long-term strategy of Dr. Bennett Delivers. After being a family doctor for over 20 years and our successful fight for the independence of Women's College Hospital, I had an unsuccessful run in provincial politics in 1995. I remember that when I was first asked to run, I answered, "But I know nothing about politics." The response was, "What do you think you just did? Saving Women's College Hospital was politics." It is, whenever I visit the grade 5 classrooms, I ask the students why anyone would leave the respected profession of medicine to become a politician, one of the least respected callings there is. Sometimes after much discussion, there is an answer that makes me smile. You wanted to make a difference. You wanted to help more people. And as difficult as it was to make a decision to leave my patients, I've never regretted the choice. I have loved the work here in Parliament, but also the inspiration of Toronto St. Paul's community, the farmers markets at Witchwood Barns and Little Jamaica, the transformation of the Spadina Museum and Casa Loma to better reflect the diversity of Toronto, ensure that everyone feels included. I love walking in the ravines, the Beltline, being stopped by neighbors with great suggestions for building a better and fairer community, country, and a sustainable planet. Working on our Toronto St. Paul's summits with Josh Matlow and Shelley Laskin. Conspiring at Aroma with my young and Eglinton MP neighbors, the members for Don Valley West and Eglinton Lawrence. I'm hugely grateful to William Watson, who's been my riding president for over a decade, for his leadership, friendship, and invaluable editorial skills, especially grammar and punctuation. As an MP, like a doctor, every day you are learning something new and helping people. In 1995, when introducing Liberal leader Lynn MacLeod at a campaign event in downtown Toronto, I defined leadership as vision, values, and risk-taking. I still believe that. Leadership is not defending the status quo. We have all come to this place to build an even better Canada. I'm proud that from the very first day I stepped onto Parliament Hill as an MP, I have profoundly understood the responsibility and the privilege of being part of a small group of Canadians who steer the direction of the best country in the world. That hasn't changed in over 26 years. Every day I still come to this place, still acutely aware of my responsibility to do the best I can to support the policies that are good for the most people or the people who need it most. In 1997, I knew that I'd been elected in a bellwether riding. Roland Michener, Ian Wan, Ron Atke, John Roberts, Barbara McDougall, Barry Campbell. I decided that I needed to take my family doctor's understanding of patient as partner into my new role as an elected representative and have it shape a respectful two-way relationship with the people I was representing. The parallel was important. As a doctor, I would ask what's wrong, I would listen, and then together with the patient, we would make a plan. The patient knew their body best, I knew the system best. It was a partnership, the sum greater than the parts. From the beginning, it was clear that the people I represented knew what was working and what was not. And they so often had impressive advice and solutions. I took Jane Jacobs' advice. Good public policy comes when the decision makers can keep in their mind's eye the people affected. I also learned from Professor Stephen Coleman, the British expert on citizen engagement, citizens don't want to govern, but they do want to know that they've been heard. And my friend Richard Allen, now in the Lords at Westminster, on the potential of e-democracy. Over the past few months, as I've been sorting through some boxes, many boxes from the early years in this House, as chair of the subcommittee on persons with disabilities, chair of Canada-Israel Parliamentary Friendship Group, chair of Women's Caucus twice, Minister of State for Public Health, and in opposition, my various critic roles. From 2011 to 2015 was a life-changing experience, as Bob Rae appointed me the critic for Indigenous Affairs. Boxes from my cabinet roles in this government, I found that the biggest box by far dealt with the ongoing theme of democratic reform. Democratic reform, to me, has always included four things: parliamentary reform, party reform, electoral reform, and meaningful citizen engagement. This last I call democracy between elections. It became my brand. I actually found another box at the cottage, research and outline for a book I'd begun 10 years ago, Democracy Between Elections, a politician's guide to listening and a citizen's guide to being heard. I may have to get back to that. I have had the benefit of a posse of inspiring feminists who kept the titanium in my spine. The late Doris Anderson, Ursula Franklin, and Monique Bégin. The status quo is not okay. Ursula helped me understand that government must be fair, transparent, and take people seriously. She warned that if we weren't fair, transparent, and respectful of what people had to say in our small organizations and in our political parties, why would anybody think that we would govern in a serious, representative democracy? Doris, who was chair of Fair Vote Canada, often asked if my support for electoral reform was a career-limiting move. Monique and my constituent, the late John Turner, were always in our corners as MPs to make sure our voices were heard. As you know, Monique and her posse of députés had been responsible for getting MPs' offices in their ridings instead of just on Parliament Hill. In 2006, I ran for the party leadership on a platform of the urgent need for party reform. I said that we had to do things differently. No longer could we act as though we were the natural governing party. Well, I was proud when the late Star journalist Jim Travers characterized my candidacy as the reformer. We need to remove the barriers to women in politics, the nomination processes, fundraising. We need to listen to the riding associations coast to coast to coast, not just in those considered winnable ridings. Parliamentary reform will require MPs to take a less partisan approach, especially at parliamentary committees. The analysts at the Library of Parliament do an amazing job. We need to do everything we can to have unanimous reports, as Bill Young did with us when we had the subcommittee on persons with disabilities. Unanimous reports inform government of a consensus reached because all the members listened to the witnesses and were able to distill recommendations that would chart a way forward. Committees need to travel more, need to get out across the country, to be available to hear firsthand the points of view of the regions. In my experience, committee travel was where colleagues in Parliament got to know one another across party lines and find out we actually liked one another. Well, maybe a few exceptions. Committee travel is also where we hear the stories we need to know and harvest solutions to the problems Canadians face every day. We almost must insist on proper disaggregated data in all formal policy-making exercises. Stories and data. We need them both in order to deliver in our work Canada's core value, fairness. I hope that wherever the privilege of being an MP has taken me, I've been there to listen and learn. In order to do the best for Canada, MPs can not only represent their own ridings and understand their own regions, they also need to understand the challenges we face coast to coast to coast. From Cape Spear to Haida Gwaii, from Grise Fiord to Point Pelee, our complex federal system requires MPs to have a deep understanding of the needs and aspirations of every region of this country. I used to think that inclusive decision-making was a feminist value. I later learned that it was actually Indigenous. Haudenosaunee women had advised the first wave of North American feminists about the principles of Indigenous leadership, asking, not telling. how to work in a circle where everyone gets to speak. You may find out that there's already a consensus, or you may find that people are asking for more information before they're prepared to weigh in on a decision. I have learned so much from extraordinary Indigenous women. My fondest memories are berry picking with Mary Simon in Kuujjuaq, tea with Maria Campbell at Gabriel's Crossing in Saskatchewan, ceremony with Sylvia Maracle at her office in Toronto. So many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis leaders and young people have been there to teach and correct my mistakes. I have described 7 settler learnings, which could help all of us join on the journey of humility and reconciliation. Imagine if we'd listened to the First Peoples and respected their imperative of protecting Mother Earth, thinking 7 generations out. Imagine if we understood the important teachings of the medicine wheel, focused on keeping people well, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, rather than relying on the medical repair shop model that I was taught in medical school. Imagine if we were to practice the Indigenous pedagogy of learning by doing, so that the land and the water themselves were the teachers of biology, chemistry, and physics. Imagine if we respected our elders instead of dismissing the elderly. If we listened to wise women, if we put children first in all decisions. Imagine if we practiced the Indigenous leadership of asking, not telling. The foundation of our democracy is that great people will run for public office. I've had the privilege of persuading many great women and Indigenous people to run. Some were elected. All of them affirmed the importance of our democratic institutions by leaving jobs they loved and spending time away from their families in order to campaign for the opportunity to contribute to make this country even better than it is now. I am a feminist and a politician. I look forward to a day where neither the word feminist nor the word politician are treated like 4-letter words. I am so proud to have served under this feminist prime minister, whose vision and values inspire us all. He has always been a leader, not a boss. He has always demonstrated that he knows that good ideas can come from many places. He is curious, he listens, he walks the talk of hope and hard work. He has always had my back. Every day he shows us better is indeed always possible. In election campaigns, it's been important for me to explain that the Prime Minister is a true leader, not a boss. A leader sees themselves at the center of a circle. Bosses see themselves at the top of a pyramid, barking orders in their singular view to those below. Father knows best has never worked. The Prime Minister has vision, values, and can take risks. Proud that we've been able to implement the ambitious, risk-taking platform of 2015, even the legalization of cannabis. We have changed history, but I'm worried. Cynicism is at an all-time high. Voter turnout is down. The safety of parliamentarians is under threat. I truly believe that it's essential for us to re-engage in a meaningful way with citizens. Consultation that is shallow or not genuine is bad for democracy. It fuels cynicism. People are turned off by it, and then they tune out. You either believe that you get better policy when you include the views of the people who will be affected by the policy, or you don't. If you don't, if you already think you know everything, then don't waste people's time. Cynicism is also being fueled by the ideology that proclaims that all government is bad, all politicians are bad or useless, and that asks, why bother to vote at all? It is wise to remember that the perma-mad people always vote. We need to acknowledge that democracy is fragile. We should tackle as a priority the proliferation of mis and disinformation and the toxicity and anonymity of social media. There are ways to protect or immunize people from the onslaught of mis and disinformation. People's ability to perform critical appraisal is heightened by greater civic literacy, health literacy, mental health literacy, and digital literacy. But we must be concerned about more than mis or disinformation. We cannot ignore that those who were once only keyboard warriors are now actually throwing stones and vandalizing and threatening people in person. The safety of parliamentarians and those groups, most often victims of hate and discrimination, are at risk. It is important at this dangerous time for democracy to remember the teaching of Ursula Franklin. Good government must be fair, transparent, and take people seriously. People are truly worried about so many aspects of our world today. The economy, the environment, their future, their children's well-being and opportunity. We need to let people know that their concerns are being heard and taken into account, and to explain government decision-making in ways that will make sense. As I look back, I remember how devastated I was in 2006 when we lost. We lost Kyoto, kids, Kelowna. The progress on climate change, childcare, and reconciliation were instantly rolled back. We had to fight back, and we did. I'm proud now that Canada has made serious advances on climate change, childcare, and reconciliation. As Minister responsible for public health, the TRC calls to action, MMIWG, and later mental health and addictions, I hope I've been able to help government bust through the silos and address complex issues across all government departments. I believe that there is a role for government in people's lives. Our complex federal system requires real relationships amongst all orders of government, municipal, provincial and territorial, federal, and Indigenous, in order to deliver effective supports and services to the people who need them most. In closing, I want to thank Barry Campbell for asking me to run in 1997. I want to thank the wind beneath my wings for 26 years, the EAs, Michael Spowert, Rob White, and Tricia Geddes, who all came back to work in my office when I met Minister of State for Public Health in 2003. To Lynn Steele, Rick Tice, Sarah Welsh, Carleen Campbell, who put together teams who shared our vision and values of accessibility and democracy between elections. And we're always able to give fearless advice. Amazing teams, and I want to thank every single one of them and know that they continue to work on this truly important project of democracy. Thank yous are dangerous. I don't want to leave people out. But today I wanted to thank those who have traveled with me for almost all of the quarter century. Mary Eberts, Bill Young and Philippe Bouzy, Michelle Amara, Frank Graves, Jim Anderson, Robin Sears, Susan Delacourt, and Don Lanahan, Anne and Paul Grail, Constance Backhouse, Karen Great, Nora Spinks, Terry Hancock, Margot Greenwood, Will Falk, Stan Kuchar, and of course Paul Martin and Bob Ray. Today, especially, I miss Bill Graham and Andy Scott. I think, and I'm so grateful to all my colleagues here. Many of my friends outside of politics have paid me the biggest compliment, that being elected didn't change me. I'm still Carolyn, or Dr. Carolyn to some. Je vous remercie mes professeurs de français Géraldine ici à Ottawa, Michel et Huguette à Logibec à Québec, ma famille d'accueil René Cochin et Claro Picard. L'amour pour la beauté de votre langue.
Love and the beauty of your language and culture were very absolute and contagious.
The best political spouse in the world. When graduating from college, he put support a politician on his bucket list. I'm not sure he meant sharing these decades of ups and downs. Once while canvassing, he asked at the door of a household in our neighborhood if the resident wishes to meet the candidate. He was told I would rather have my eyeballs taken out with fish hooks. He quickly moved to become sign chair. As all of my colleagues in this House, President Pass know all too well, an MP's family has lots of these fish hook moments over the years of all different types, intensity, and duration. I'm grateful for the love of my sons, Jack and Ben, and the sacrifices they have made, happily and unhappily, to allow me to serve Canada as I have for over a quarter century. For 26 years, I've been able to honestly reply to the critics with a question. What country would you rather live in? For 26 years, the answer has been the same. A moment of silence, and then an acknowledgement that as much work as there still is to do, we are proud Canadians. I've never heard one word of other country envy. So I will miss my amazing parliamentary colleagues. I think we remember that moment in the House this fall when President Zelensky from Ukraine quoted Governor General Mary Simon with a word in Inuktitut, Ajuianata. Don't give up. Stay strong against all odds. In these difficult times, I have every confidence that we will continue to fight together to make the best country in the world even better. Merci, miigwech, thank you, Ajuinata.
Bravo. Bravo.